Hosting the Super Bowl is a great opportunity for a franchise and its city.
Is NRG good enough to lure the NFL back in the near future? Or will we need a brand new stadium to get the league's attention once again?
There are more than a few stadiums that don't get the shine that they deserve. I mean, can't we make a one-off exception for some of them? Let's take a look at 10 stadiums that need to host a Super Bowl as soon as possible. First up, let's go with Lucas Oil Stadium, where the Indianapolis Colts play their home games. Now, before anyone jumps into the comment section, yes, we know that Indy hosted the Super Bowl in 2012, but come on. As far as we're concerned, Indianapolis should make the regular rotation. Sure, the city obviously lacks the climate allure that cities like Miami and Los Angeles have, and there isn't the electric nightlife of a New Orleans or Atlanta, but Indy was beyond committed to putting on an epic event. They absolutely nailed it in 2012 and have continued to put on other great championship events like the College Football Playoff National Championship in 2022 and even the NCAA basketball tournament in 2010 and 2015. It isn't just sporting events that Indianapolis is attracting these days either. Allison Melanchthon, who served as the city's Super Bowl host committee's president and CEO back in 2012, had the following to say about Indy. Talent attraction has been better, more corporations have moved here, more conventions. So I always knew that it was a great city, but a lot of other people figured it out then. It sounds to me like more people are starting to understand what this Midwestern city showed off during its hosting stint, that it is a great place to host events. It has all the necessary infrastructure and is ready to rise to the occasion to support all the fanfare that comes with Super Bowl Sunday. Sticking in the Midwest, Ford Field, the stadium the Detroit Lions call home, should get back in the hosting mix as well. Detroit last hosted the Super Bowl in 2006 when Big Ben and the Steelers knocked off Mike Holmgren's Seahawks. This Super Bowl got a lot of shine because it was the hometown of NFL legend Jerome Bettis, who was playing his last ever game. And he went out in the best possible fashion, winning the Super Bowl in front of friends and family alike. That Super Bowl was also notable for being the first Super Bowl ever played at Field Turf, and believe it or not, it was the first Super Bowl to ever be broadcasted in full HD, which should be all the proof that you need that it has been way too long since the Super Bowl was in the Motor City. I know a lot of people have preconceived notions about Detroit, but the city is on the come up, and Ford Field is a great place to watch a game. Besides, the Ford family is one of the longest standing owners in the league, having run the Lions since 1963. With all that NFL history, why not let the Lions host? Plus, it'll give the long-suffering Lions fans, which happens to be some of the best football fans around, a chance to actually watch football in February. Next up, how about we get a Super Bowl at Lambeau Field? Listen, I understand that Wisconsin can be freezing in February, and Green Bay is hardly a professional sports city, let alone a city prepared to handle the massive influx of people that comes with hosting the Super Bowl. But Lambeau is far and away the most recognizable stadium in the NFL, and honestly, it's up there across all of North American sports. Besides, the NFL let the Giants host the Super Bowl back in 2014 to show off the new Meadowlands Stadium. So if we're making exceptions for the shiny new stadiums, we should also make them for the insane combination of history and nostalgia that is Lambeau Field. Is that really so much to ask? While we're talking about stadiums that'll probably never get the chance to host, but absolutely should, let's point out the fact that Arrowhead Stadium, home of the Kansas City Chiefs, needs to host a Super Bowl ASAP. The reason they haven't is largely because Kansas City, like Green Bay, can be absolutely brutal during the winter. But sometimes it's worth risking it for the biscuit. And in the case of Arrowhead, that is absolutely the case. Week in and week out, it has one of the best game day environments around the league. Obviously, we recognize that Chiefs fans, many of whom would not actually be in attendance for the Super Bowl, are a huge part of why it's such an electric place to watch a game. But the city just loves football so much that it would simply have to be a success, and I refuse to believe otherwise. And plus, we would get the privilege of watching the broadcasters, or at least the pregame analysts, stuffing their faces with the legendary Kansas City barbecue. Just a little icing on the cake for what would already be a hell of a Super Bowl weekend. To close out our wish list section, let's call it, of stadiums that will probably never end up hosting a Super Bowl but absolutely should, how about we talk about Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York, the home of the Buffalo Bills. Sure, at a moment's notice, Buffalo can get hit with a foot or more of snow, and yeah, it isn't even second city status, but the passion that Bills Mafia brings to the game simply cannot be replicated. The atmosphere up in Buffalo, where people eat, sleep, and breathe football, is made for big games. And there is no bigger game than the Super Bowl. Even if the Bills aren't in the Super Bowl, those crazy fans would still likely show up in droves, crashing the tailgate and jumping through every last dang table they can find. In all likelihood, the city of Buffalo will have to wait until they ultimately cave to NFL wishes and build a new domed stadium. But where's the fun in that? Buffalo is a true blue football city, and some good old-fashioned football in the wintry snow would add a whole new level of authenticity that Los Angeles couldn't even dream of. Maybe we are just football purists, but despite all the chaos it would cause, we want our football played in whatever conditions the host city has to bring. In the idea of having the Super Bowl, the biggest football game of the year, played in a Buffalo winter with the craziest fans in the league, sounds way too good to pass up on as far as we're concerned. So what if Buffalo isn't built to house the tens of thousands of people that flock to the game? Bring on the craziness! Send the Super Bowl to Buffalo! Okay, now let's ease our way back towards reality and focus on some cities that should host a Super Bowl ASAP and might actually get a chance to. You know, there are actually two relatively new stadiums in Texas that come to mind. First, NRG Stadium, home of the Houston Texans. The construction was completed back in 2002, but the Texans have continued to update the stadium over the years. Its usual capacity is 72,220 people, but for special events, it can be expanded to 80K. Similar to Lucas Oil, NRG Stadium has hosted before. In fact, even more recently. It was back in 2017. But with Super Bowls scheduled up through 2025 and a couple of newer venues likely to get a chance to be showcased in the following years, it could easily be over a decade before NRG Stadium in the city of Houston hosts the big game again, which to us is an absolute travesty. The stadium may not be quite as glamorous as SoFi in LA or Allegiant in Vegas, but Houston is a great football city and has all the nightlife and culture that you would want and need to produce an epic Super Bowl weekend. And considering the fact that the 2017 Super Bowl brought in around $347 million to the local economy, according to a report commissioned by the Super Bowl Host Committee, I bet Houston city officials are itching for another chance to play host. So what are we waiting for? Let's get the Super Bowl back into H-Town already. You already know it'll bring in plenty of celebrities and athletes who love that Houston party scene. Cough, cough, I'm looking at you, James Harden. Anyway, if Houston can't get the Super Bowl, maybe Jerry Jones can find a way to get it back into the city of Dallas and into his beloved AT&T Stadium. Dallas hasn't played host since 2011, and we believe that, like Indy, Dallas really needs to be in the regular rotation. Even if that means the general public has to swallow the pill of putting another feather in Jerry Jones's hat in the process. AT&T Stadium opened in 2009, and though over a decade has passed, it is still a marvel. The attention to detail that the Jones family and HKS, the design firm contracted for the project, put into developing the stadium is absolutely next level. It features a ton of high-end art comparable to the Art Institute of Chicago. The stadium can expand to fit over 105,000 people, and its 120 by 180 foot retractable glass doors and transparent roof can give the attendees the sense of being outdoors despite it being an enclosed facility. And if all that wasn't enough, Dallas is a football-loving city with all the nightlife and amenities that one might want from its Super Bowl host, which is why we've seen other major events like the NCAA Final Four and the College Football Playoff hosted here in the time since. Nashville is another city that, if you ask us, absolutely needs to host a Super Bowl ASAP. Nashville, or Nash Vegas as it has been come to be known, with the massive influx of tourists the city gets on a regular basis, would be an amazing scene for the Super Bowl. With Broadway as its centerpiece, the city itself is one big party and would be well suited for all the nighttime shenanigans that many Super Bowl goers will want to partake in. It does, however, seem like if the big game does come to Nashville, it won't be played in this version of Nissan Stadium, but rather the new $2.1 billion venue that is rumored to be breaking ground by 2026. Between the moderate weather, the infrastructure and energy of the city, and now likely a brand new stadium, Nissan Stadium, or whatever its name potentially gets changed to, is a must for the NFL to have host the Super Bowl. For similar reasons, it would be great to see Charlotte host the big game at Bank of America Stadium. Now, they aren't going to get a whole new facility, but owner David Tepper has talked about implementing some serious renovations to what is already a relatively new stadium. And while Charlotte doesn't quite have the massive party scene or reputation that Nashville has, it is a young city with plenty to do. On top of that, the Panthers are one of 16 teams that still have not hosted a Super Bowl, but there are only a couple on the list that have climates warm enough for the NFL standards. It may not be 75 and sunny like Miami, but the temperature is usually in the mid-50s in Charlotte that time of year. So the NFL may as well throw the city a bone, especially since they've been such good sports about their team losing every time that they've made it to the Super Bowl. Last but not least, we have Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, where the 49ers play their home games. The stadium was home to Super Bowl 50 back in 2016, but considering the history of the franchise and the strong location, it would be great to get the big game back in the Bay Area again. The stadium was brand new when it last hosted, having opened its operations in 2014. But you know, it's aged pretty well in the grand scheme of things. It has beautiful architecture and all the amenities and technological advancements that you'd want in a Super Bowl stadium. Not to mention some public transportation access and one major pro for any diehard fan making the trek to Santa Clara to see the game that may or not be able to afford the best tickets. Levi Stadium is configured so that the majority of the luxury suites are on one side of the field, which means that the fans sitting in the upper deck are usually closer to the action than they'd otherwise be. Well, I'm sold. But which NFL stadium do you think needs to host a Super Bowl ASAP? Was there any stadium that we may have missed? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to CPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.